everybody! I'm Rococo. Welcome back to Breaking Down the Face Beat. In this section on knowing our faces, we've already talked about face shapes, but now we're going to talk about skin. Specifically, skin color. Since it's a little boring just to watch me talk at you, I'm going to be doing a voiceover as I create this look for you. Let's get started! Skin color is a big topic, not just because of how many variations there are, but because there are a lot of cultural implications that tie into it. Knowing this, I would like to take a moment to give you a content warning. In this video, there will be mentions of colorism and skin bleaching. Please be aware of that as we go forward. I have provided a bibliography of 19 free-to-access sources I used in research for this video on my Instagram. If you would like help with the sources, bibliography, or additional research, please let me know and I'll be happy to help. For this video, I will be dividing skin color into shade, undertones, and mixed tones. Artistically, shade and tone have their own specific meanings. However, for the purposes of this video, the term shade will refer to the immediate spectrum of skin color, and it will be divided into three overly simplified categories: the dark shade range, the medium shade range, and the light shade range. I say range because, like all things in life, skin color is a spectrum and there's lots of crossover and variation. Looking down at your skin, it should be fairly easy to see roughly what shade range you match into. With this knowledge, you can keep an eye out for keywords when looking for makeup. If you're in the dark range, along with the term dark, you should look for words like rich and deep. If you're in the medium range, you should be on the lookout for the words medium and tan. And if you're in the light range, you should keep an eye out for light and fair. I personally fall into the light shade range. I'm even on the lighter side of it. If we were going to do a sliding scale 1 to 10, I'm Wonder Bread with mayonnaise. As I mentioned before, I can tell that pretty clearly just by looking at myself. As simple as it feels, it's the first step to getting to know your skin color better and finding the products you want and need. Now, the reason we have the shade gradient in skin tone is because of something called melanin. Melanin is a pigment produced in a specialized group of cells called melanocytes. Now, we could go into a lot of detail with melanin. We could talk about chemical composition or different types, but for the purpose of this video, what you need to know is that melanin determines skin color. Overly simplified, more melanin equals darker skin. Now, objectively, that's a pretty simple concept. Unfortunately, the world is not always inherently objective in their approach to things, and that includes skin color. I feel that as someone on a public platform talking about skin color, it is important that I address this fact. The fact is that racism exists, and it sucks, but it needs to be addressed. If you're watching this as a person of color, please excuse me as I direct this a little bit more towards the allies and people who need to learn about it. If you take a look at racism, it basically boils down to two concepts: white supremacy or colorism. Now I'm going to focus on colorism because it directly relies on what we're talking about: pigmentation of skin across the board. The basic belief of colorism is that the darker your skin, the less you're worth in some way, shape, or form. To put it bluntly, that's just incorrect. Melanin is not an inverse variable to worth as a human being. The more melanin you have does not equal the less human worth, point blank. Now, I'm not going to dive into how that happens or what the reasoning behind it is, but I will say this is a daily battle for people of color, and it's capitalized on at every turn. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but for now, I just want to take a moment to point out that I have never lived this experience. I have never been on the other side of this conversation, and therefore I want you, as the viewer, and this is particularly for those who are new to this concept, to know that I am not the person to come to as a source to truly understand colorism or racism and its effects. I'm not. Instead, I'm going to take this moment to pass the mic to the voices you do need to hear this conversation from. And those are the voices of people of color. As people with access to the internet, there are hundreds of thousands of sources at our fingertips by people of color that we can learn from. And we should. I know I have a lot to learn. I have a lot to unlearn. And the only way to really keep doing that is to access the right kind of sources. Please, if you are new to this concept, take this moment to open a tab for Google, YouTube, Amazon Books, whatever, and search colorism. Look for the ones made by people of color. Extending back out past just the allies and the people who are new to these concepts, we are here because we love our skin in all the ways it comes. Skin is not some mass market object like an HB pencil. It was never meant to be standardized. It's just meant to be yours. Now that you've taken the time you need to open the other tabs and we've regrouped, let's continue our discussion of skin color as a base for artistry. No matter what shade range you bring to the table, you've been gifted a canvas to create as you will. Our goal here is to understand that canvas a little bit better. Since we've already looked at ourselves in the mirror or at our arms and determined which of the three oversimplistic shade ranges we live in, we now need to take a look at what is called undertones. Undertones are the colors that make up the subtleties of our skin. There are four main categories of undertones: warm undertones, cool undertones, neutral undertones, and olive undertones. Now usually we just hear about warm, cool, and neutral, with olive skin being included in the neutral category, but we're getting fancy with it. So how do you know what undertone you have? It's not as easy as quickly glancing in the mirror this time. However, fear not, as there are three pretty tried and true methods for determining what your undertone is: your veins, your jewelry, and the color white. The first method is the veins in your wrists. If you can see your veins in your wrist, check to see if the veins appear blue, purple, or green. If the veins only look blue or purple, you have cool undertones. If they only appear green, you have warm undertones. If your veins show both colors, you have neutral or olive undertones. To use my wrist as an example, here you can see the purpley blue and you can see the green. Now my skin color makes it pretty darn easy to use this method, as you can pretty much trace my veins all the way up to my armpits. However, it might not work for you. So what's another way we can tell our undertones? Another way to tell your undertone is to do the gold versus silver jewelry test. First, you hold up a piece of silver jewelry and a piece of gold jewelry to your skin and look in the mirror. If the silver jewelry looks the best, you have cool undertones. If the gold jewelry looks the best, you have warm. If they're equal, you have neutral undertones, and if there's only slight differences rather than distinct differences, you have olive undertones. Now, maybe you don't have two types of jewelry on hand. Most people have a white shirt or a piece of paper or a plate they can put next to their skin and stand in the light with. If next to a true white you get pinkish tones in your skin, you have cool undertones. If you get yellowish tones next to the white, you have warm undertones. If there isn't really a discernible difference, you have neutral undertones. I personally don't like the white paper test because there's a lot of shades of white, even in paper. So I feel like this gets a little too objective for my taste, but if it works for you, it works for you. If you're having a hard time telling if you're neutral or olive undertone, look for ashy or gray tones in your skin. This is usually a pretty big giveaway that you are an olive undertone. If you have colors from both warm and cool shades that work well with your skin, but only certain ones from both sides, that's another sign that you may have olive undertones. Other than finding matching foundations, undertones will help you find a direction for what colors you may want to choose to play with. Whether it's makeup, jewelry, clothes, or body art, knowing your undertone can help you narrow down the search in the overwhelming world of colors to the ones that best help you celebrate what you have. Once you've identified your undertone, it is very easy to pop up on the internet, talk to a stylist or a person at Sephora and say, "Hey, this is my shade range and undertone, what do I need from it?" In this sense, once you have your shade range and your undertones figured out, you've got the basics for giving your canvas the best start it can get. You may be ready to go with just that information, but you also might be looking down at your skin and wondering, what do I do if not all my skin matches? Don't worry, not everyone's skin is the same all over. In fact, most people have at least a little bit of variation, whether that's in the form of freckles, birthmarks, hyperpigmentation, or vitiligo. Freckles, beauty marks, and birthmarks are an uneven distribution of melanin. You get freckles when the melanocytes bunch up together, same with beauty marks. While in Euro, Western, and Caucasian-centric media, you mostly see depictions of freckles matched with light skin range, they appear naturally in all skin colors. For birthmarks, you have the same kind of idea. An uneven distribution of pigmentation, but instead of a small grouping, it spreads out over more space. Like freckles and beauty marks, birthmarks are totally individualized and vary from person to person in appearance, though some families carry a specific birthmark along genetically. On the other side of this is vitiligo. Instead of the addition of pigment, vitiligo is the loss of pigment. When you have vitiligo, the loss of skin pigment extends over the body in patches and patterns over time. When you lose pigment, it's not like a fading suntan. The actual color in your skin goes away completely. The appearance of vitiligo is most obvious if you are in the dark and medium skin ranges due to the striking contrast of the absolute loss of pigment with these shades. Recently, we've gotten a lot more insight to the beauty and versatility of how vitiligo looks because of the popularization of models like Winnie Harlow. To highlight or adapt any of these variations is a personal choice. You may wish to explore with different levels of foundation transparency, and you may wish to celebrate in ways that step away from simple matching. No matter what you do, it's part of your canvas, and it's important to identify how you'd like to work with it. Birthmarks, freckles, and vitiligo are all things you're born with, so these variations come whether you're doing anything special externally or not. However, a skin variation that does majority tie into external factors is something called hyperpigmentation. Hyperpigmentation usually happens on the face or around the places our bodies bend, like armpits, elbows, and knees. While size and location vary, by definition, hyperpigmentation is simply a darkening of the skin in a particular area. This darkening can be from hormones, sun exposure, inflammation, or irritation, including chafing, and medication. In the lighter skin range, hyperpigmentation may also include redness. As normal as it is to experience hyperpigmentation here and there, the treatments for it are highly commercialized as part of evening out skin tones. Now, I'm a firm believer that you do what you want with your skin. It's your temple and you will decorate it as you please. However, a common treatment for hyperpigmentation is skin bleaching. As a spot treatment for hyperpigmentation, skin bleaching doesn't hold the same implications as its other popular usage, all-over lightening, which gets into the realm of being problematic. The reason this is problematic is because most, if not all, the selling points for all-over lightening are rooted in the ideas of colorism. Directed in particular towards people of color in the dark shade range, these lightening products are being sold to people of color as a correction tool for their skin color in general, not just quote-unquote problem areas. Their entire skin shade is being told it's undesirable and therefore have this product to make yourself lighter. No. Your skin color doesn't need to be fixed. Now, I am clearly not a person of color. I have never been told to bleach my skin, and I have never been told I would be better or more desirable if I was lighter. So I can't speak to what the choice to bleach your skin looks and feels like. But I can say that it's wrong to make people feel like they have to bleach their skin. And it's wrong for society to push it on the basis of colorism. So what is skin bleaching? When you bleach your skin, first of all, it's not just bleach for like laundry. It's a chemical process done with specialized creams, pills, or even surgery and injections. At the end of the day, what it does is it kills the melanin cells. It doesn't lighten them, it doesn't convince them to start being less melanated, it kills them. If you do heavy amounts of skin bleaching, your undertones change and you'll start getting distinctly ashen gray tones to your skin. This is kind of like an extreme version of the mild ashen gray notes found naturally in olive undertones. Be aware that this will affect any foundation shade choices you'll have to make. Having briefly explained what skin bleaching is, I want to be very clear. I am not trying to shame any person of color who has ever lightened their skin. The concept is a lot bigger than any individual. I think skin is beautiful in all the ways it comes. But I can't tell you, and I won't tell you, how to be comfortable in yours. I don't promote skin bleaching, and I don't damn it inherently either. But I do speak out against the system that makes people feel that it is necessary. If you make that choice at the end of the day, the only thing I can say as someone who has never been in the position where doing so would make a huge impact on my life, if any impact at all, is please be safe. And make your choices from a place that is informed and brings you joy. No matter what color your skin is, no matter what shade or undertone or markings you do or don't have, there is always something to be explored and to be celebrated. By identifying our shade range, our undertones, and the way that our skin shows its variety and organizing our pigmentation, we are able to get a better understanding of the canvas we have to work with. Once we have that understanding, we can identify our needs a little bit better. Thank you so much for taking the time to explore this somewhat loaded discussion with me today. No matter how you use the information you've gotten from this video, I hope at least helps a little bit in your journey to express your most authentic self, however that may come about. Please remember as we go on today, no matter what shade you come in, no matter how many variations you have, no matter what your undertones are, you are valid, you are beautiful. And your inherent worth does not reside in how much or how little melanin you have. Until next time, love ya!